All right, let's talk about a challenge that every single growing business hits sooner or later: strategic capacity planning. It's really all about making sure you can handle the business you hope to get without, breaking the bank or letting people down. Let's dive in.
So, picture this. You've got more customers than you can possibly handle. I mean, orders are just pouring in. On the surface, that sounds amazing, right? The ultimate dream. But here's the thing. It's actually a really tricky spot to be in. This is a crossroads. One wrong turn, and you could totally overwhelm your team, your quality could slip, and all those amazing new customers, gone.
Okay, so before we get too deep, let's make sure we're all on the same page with a key word here: capacity. When we say capacity, it's easy to think of just like the size of your building, but it's so much more than that. It's the absolute maximum your entire operation can handle. That means your machines, your space, and maybe most importantly, the skills your people have. Think of it as the ultimate speed limit for your business.
And that brings us right back to what we're calling the capacity crossroads. Look, this isn't a small decision you can just walk back next week. Whatever you decide here is going to have ripple effects for years. It's going to impact your costs, how you stack up against the competition, everything. This is a big picture, strategic move, not just a day-to-day operational tweak.
And really, it all boils down to answering three fundamental questions. First, what kind of capacity are we talking about? Do we need more people, better machines, more square footage? Second, how much do we need to handle the demand we're seeing? And third, when does it need to be ready? I mean, tomorrow? Next year? Nailing down the answers to these three is the whole game.
But you can't plan for the future if you don't have a real handle on the present. And I mean like brutally honest. No guessing. You need cold, hard data about what your limits actually are right now. So let's look at how you measure that.
Okay, this is a really important distinction. Let's think about a bakery. It's design capacity. That's the perfect world number. It's what you'd get if the ovens ran 24/7, no one ever took a break, and nothing ever broke. Maybe that's 1,000 loaves of bread a day. But we don't live in a perfect world, right? So then you have effective capacity. This is the realistic number. This is what you can actually produce when you factor in real-life stuff like cleaning the ovens, people taking lunch breaks, and scheduled maintenance. It's the difference between theory and reality.
And here's how we turned that idea into actual numbers you can use. Let's swap the bakery for a truck repair shop for a second. We've got two key metrics. First is utilization. You take your actual output, in this case 36 trucks, and divide it by your design capacity, the perfect world number of 50. That gives you 72%. So you're using 72% of your theoretical max. Then you have efficiency. For this, you take that same 36 trucks, but you divide it by your effective capacity, the realistic number, which is 40. That gets you to 90%, and that's a great number. It tells you that given your real-world constraints, you're running a really tight ship.
All right, so you've measured where you stand. Now for the big question. Where are you going? When it comes to adding capacity, there are basically three main strategies people use, and each one has its own pros and cons. Let's walk through them.
First, you've got the leading strategy. This is the go big or go home approach. You're building capacity for demand that you anticipate is coming. It's like building a giant stadium before you've even sold a single ticket. It's definitely high risk, because what if nobody shows up? But if you're right, it's incredibly high reward. You're ready to go the moment the floodgates open.
Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have the following strategy. This is way more cautious. You basically wait until you're bursting at the seams. You're literally turning people away before you decide to expand. The risk is way lower because you know for a fact the demand is there. But the downside? You're probably losing customers to your competitors while you're playing catch-up. And then there's the third option, which is kind of the Goldilocks approach, the tracking strategy. Instead of one giant leap, you add capacity in smaller, steady steps. Think of it like adding one more table to your restaurant at a time as it gets more popular. It lets you hug that demand curve really closely so you're never way over or way under your needs.
But hang on, adding capacity doesn't just mean building more stuff yourself. That brings up another huge strategic question that every business has to face. Do you make it or do you buy it? Do you build that capability inside your own company or do you just pay someone else to do it for you?
And this make versus buy decision is a real balancing act. You've got to weigh all these factors, like do you have the capacity and expertise in-house? What about quality control? Sometimes it's cheaper to outsource, but what are the risks? The nature of your demand matters too. There's no easy answer here. It's all about what makes the most sense for your unique situation.
Okay, enough with the big picture strategy for a minute. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, the actual math.
To make a smart choice between different options, like buying a new machine versus outsourcing the work, you need some tools. And the most basic, most powerful one is what we call cost-volume analysis.
First up, you have your fixed costs. These are the bills you have to pay no matter what. Think about your rent, or the base salaries for your team. Whether you make one thing or a million things, those costs stay the same.
And then you've got your variable costs. These costs go up and down directly with how much you produce. So things like raw materials. The more you make, the more you spend. If you shut down for a day and make nothing, your variable costs are zero.
Okay, so when you put those two together, you can find your break-even point. This is that magic number, the exact point where you're not losing money anymore, but you're not making a profit yet either. You're just breaking even. And the math to find it is actually pretty straightforward. You just take your total fixed costs and divide them by your revenue per unit minus your variable cost per unit.
Let's make this real. Imagine you're choosing new accounting software for your company. You've got 3 options. Software A has a pretty low upfront cost, but it costs you more for every single report you run. Then look at Software C. It's got a huge fixed cost, but the per report cost is tiny. So, which one do you pick?
Well, the answer is it totally depends on your volume. That's what's so cool about this analysis. There are these crossover points where the best choice changes. If you're only running, say, under about 2,800 reports a year, Software A is a no-brainer. It's the cheapest. But if you're a giant company doing over, 6,600 reports? Then Software C, despite that huge upfront cost, actually becomes the cheapest option in the long run. And B is the sweet spot in the middle. See? This is why you do the math.
So, we've covered the big strategies, we've crunched some numbers. Let's zoom back out. What's the end game here? What is all this planning trying to achieve? It's all about finding that operational sweet spot.
As most companies get bigger, they start to benefit from something called economies of scale. It just means that the more you produce, the cheaper it gets to make each individual item. You can buy your supplies in bulk for less, your machines are running more, your rent gets spread out over more sales, you get the idea. Bigger can be more efficient.
But here's the catch. That doesn't go on forever. If you get too big, you can hit a wall. You actually start getting less efficient. This is called diseconomies of scale. Suddenly, communication gets messy, you've got too many layers of management, and the whole operation just gets too complex and slow. The cost for each unit actually starts to go back up.
And that brings us to this idea of the optimal operating level. If you were to draw a graph of your cost per unit as your output grows, it would look like a U. On the left side, your costs are falling. That's economies of scale. On the right side, they start rising again. That's diseconomies of scale. And right there, at the very bottom of that U, that's the sweet spot. That's the most efficient you can be. And that's the target we're aiming for with all this planning.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. When it comes to your own work, your own business, is your capacity planning built for yesterday's success, or is it setting you up for tomorrow's opportunity? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.